Hey everybody, it's Don again. It is Saturday afternoon, just about 4 o'clock. This seems to be my preferred time for coming down here to make these videos. I'm back in Donaldson Park, and it is so windy outside that I gave it a couple of shots trying to make a video, and the wind is howling so loudly I just don't know if anybody will be able to hear me. So I decided to come back in the car and make this video. I'll get out there the next time, I promise you. Today's video is going to be on mental health, a subject that I hold very dear, a subject that I have had personal experience with, which I'm going to relate to you. And it's a subject that has become much more spoken about in the mainstream, which I am very, very glad to see. Because I know that there are a lot of people out there who feel like they are not right, that something is wrong with them, and they are afraid to reach out. And I would urge you not to be. You have seen people like athletes, for instance, coming out and speaking about the subject of mental health and how important it is to them and how tough it is to be a professional athlete in the spotlight, in the mainstream at all times, with people examining every inch of your life. And that's not very comfortable, and I can certainly understand people feeling like that. In my opinion, mental illness is probably far more rampant or widespread than many people actually realize. And there are some forms of mental illness that are not even recognized as mental illness yet, that I would say are definitely mental illnesses, such as the rampant, the glorification of wealth and power, as if somebody who is wealthy or powerful has to be better than I am, simply because they have that wealth and power, and they are glorified and deified because of that position that they have. And that, they're not looked at as human beings anymore. They're like super people, which to me is completely ridiculous. So let me go back and talk about my first about my own experience. I just want to correct a mistake I made the other day in my last video. I said that at 63, most of the world is older than I am, which is obviously incorrect. Most of the world is significantly younger than I am. So put that down to just not thinking clearly in the middle of that video. But, so then the first thing I want to start talking about in this video is my own experience. When I was 40 years old, I believe it was, maybe 41, I had a, what I would call, or the general term in the layman's words, is a nervous breakdown. But in mental health terms or clinical terms, it would be called a manic episode. I started screaming and crying. I started smashing and kicking things, breaking things in my own home, which I didn't know was illegal. And my wife and kids were so scared that she called the police and had me removed from my home, and a restraining order was put in place, and I have not seen my children on a regular basis since that time, which has been a very, very difficult experience for me. And I have reconciled with that situation, which is something I'll go into a little bit later in this video. That incident spun me into a depression that lasted at least 5 or 6 years. And near the end of that, finally, I was able to get some good professional help. But during that whole period of time, I felt alone, with no support network, no friends, nobody that could help me, people telling me just to deal with it. And that is the worst response you can possibly get. Just being told to deal with it. You just can't deal with it. And if you're telling yourself that you just need to deal with it, then you are not being truthful with yourself, and you're probably making it worse. So I'd urge you that if that's the feeling that you have and that's the response you're getting from people, first of all, they are not your real friends. You will more than likely find out who your real friends are when you go through this, by those people who actually take the time to support you. The people who tell you just to deal with it, or they don't want to be bothered, they're your great friends until they find out you have a problem, and then they don't want to be bothered with you anymore. Those are people you should shed in your life and move on. So I was going through a terrible depression. I was on 4 different medications at one point in time, some of which gave me terrible insomnia. So they had to change the cocktail a couple of times to make sure that I could deal with life and actually get some sleep at night. But I would still have terrible anxiety attacks and terrible feelings of depression, where I felt like the world was shrinking into nothing. And I would lay on my couch for hours at a time, just shaking, and trying to watch something funny on TV so I could laugh at something, just so that I wouldn't feel like I had nothing in life whatsoever. Now, just because I am relating this experience to you does not make me an expert. I do not purport myself to be an expert. I am just giving you the benefit of my own experience and my own recommendations for what I think you should do if you are feeling the same way that I did. Finally, after about 5 years, I did find a good therapist. Her name was Elise. She was an older lady, probably, I think she was close to retirement because she retired just a few years after I stopped seeing her. And I saw her for like 5 years. And the reason that she was so wonderful was because what she would do was she'd come and ask me how I'm feeling this week. And, what's on my mind, that kind of thing. And she would ask me a few leading questions, and then I would talk for the next 50 minutes about what's going on and how I feel. And by the time I left, I would feel better because I talked myself into my own solution. That's basically what she did. That's why she was so good. And that's why I found out later on that that's really what a good therapist does. A good therapist doesn't tell you how to live. A good therapist doesn't tell you what to do. They sort of help you find the answer for yourself. And I found that to be very beneficial because now you are really helping yourself. And that's far better than somebody telling you what to do and wondering whether or not they're giving you the right advice. Now, you may be thinking about how you're feeling and wondering to yourself, how did I get this way? What is the cause of the illness or the terrible feelings that I'm having? And that, in my opinion, is not what you should be doing. You should not be ruminating on your situation, because the longer that you do, and believe me, I did this. That's why I'm telling you not to do it. This is my own personal experience again. I did that for a long time. I simply would look at the clock and wonder, oh my God, when is it going to be time for bed or something like that? The days dragged on forever and ever and ever. And it was like living second by second. I remember the social workers telling me that if you can't make it through the next minute, make it through the next second. If you can't make it through the next hour, make it through the next minute, that kind of thing. It was one of those things where you just had to realize that life had to keep going on. So do not, or at least try not to, ruminate on the experience that you're going through, because the longer that you do, the worse it gets. I have said in another video that your thoughts give out a frequency, a vibrational frequency, and if you're vibrating that kind of frequency, a low grief, despair type of frequency, then that's how you're going to feel, and those are the kind of experiences you're going to continue to attract to yourself, and that is not going to help you at all. But that is not to say I don't identify with the experiences or the circumstances that you're going through. You may have a bad job. You may be in a toxic environment. You may have been bullied. Something I saw on LinkedIn the other day about talking about bullies and how they take their revenge out on people. Or, they bullied when they're young, and when they get to be in management, they start, treating people bad just to repay the people who, did them wrong for such a long time. You may have friends who treat you badly, friends who aren't real friends, like I said before. You may have gotten into drugs, this kind of thing, and you feel completely addicted and hopeless, and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. All of those experiences I can relate to, okay? I've been in many of those situations myself. So this is not a lecture. This is not something I'm, trying to explain to you exactly how to fix yourself. I'm just telling you how I feel, what I've been through, and how I feel about you, which I care about you, whoever you are. If you had an experience where you had no one to talk to and you needed somebody, I would be glad to have a conversation with you. That would be a pleasure to try to help you out and make you feel as if you are still worth something, because you are, okay? And I've had that complete feeling of worthlessness and hopelessness. I remember one of the social workers telling me that, Mr. Crone, you have no hope whatsoever. And, just her telling me that made me feel terrible. Just hearing those words made me feel awful, like I had nothing. And I remember another social worker in a different circumstance, looking at me and telling me, Mr. Crone, you're an educated man. You know how to get out of this. You can do it yourself if you try. You just have to want to. And, that actually meant a lot to me. That wasn't like telling me just deal with it. They were telling me you have the power. And I think that is incredibly important to realize. You have the power within yourself to do something about your own problem. And I would hope that everybody recognizes that. Don't feel like you're being lectured to from me. I'm not doing that. I'm simply telling you that if you try, that if you can get that moment of presence and peace within yourself just for a moment, then you can build upon that. And you can start reaching within yourself for the answers. trying different things. I remember one time also the social workers were telling me creativity is something that gets destroyed during depression. So if you can have some sort of creative outlet that actually helps deflect the depression away and put you in a different state of mind where you can begin to feel some sense of self-worth again. So I would encourage everybody, please don't give in. I remember I had a police officer telling me one time, what did he say? Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I thought about that, and it was like, wow, he's right. And you know, it's funny, I was 40 years old, 41 years old, and here I am 63, and I had thoughts of suicide back then, and look where I would be. I'd be nowhere. I'd be under the ground if I had given into those impulses. And here I am today, happy, healthy, balanced, feeling great, on no medication whatsoever. I go out and exercise, and that's another thing I would recommend to anybody who's feeling bad. Get to the gym, go running, however you feel you want to exercise, go out and do it. That actually helps a lot. As a matter of fact, I would say that if I stopped doing the kind of exercise routine that I have on a regular basis, that I would probably slip back into depression again. And I also am, as a result of my experience, I am very aware of the signs that I might be slipping back. So I fight that. And when I see it, I say, okay, I've got to take some sort of action here. And what do? So these are the remedies that I recommend for you, besides the creativity and exercise, is meditation and presence. Meditation is so, so important. Being able to sit quietly for a few minutes, even 10 minutes, just to be able to sit quietly and calm your mind. Now, doing that, especially in your circumstances, if you're feeling depressed or ill or, just a general feeling of craziness, like you're feeling overwhelmed or out of control, that could be a very difficult task. But try. Just give it a try. It is worth it. It is worth it. And believe me, if you do it and start feeling like you can control that aspect of your life, your own mind, then you can start controlling how you feel. Because there isn't much else that you can control in this world if you realize that. What's overwhelming you right now, what's making you feel bad, is probably out of your control. All you can control is how you react to it. And that is the key to your own cure. And do reach out to a professional. If you have a professional available, if you know of one in your area, if you can afford it, even if you can't. I know the ones that I went to back in 2009 or whatever it was like on a sliding scale according to your income. At some mental health center across the other side of town. There is help, okay? I think there's probably online help these days as well that you can probably reach out to. And even if you don't have that, read, okay? I remember when I was diagnosed, the first thing I was diagnosed with was bipolar 2. And then they changed that to major depressive disorder. So what did I do? I went to the library and I read up on this stuff. I found out what the heck all that means, okay? And it was alarming, okay? So I would urge anyone who feels this way to read up on it, educate yourself, reach out to others, somebody who you think you can depend on. I have my best friend who actually helped me through a lot of this, got me back on my feet, made me feel like I was worth something again, and I thank him very much all the time for it. So do that, okay? Don't be afraid to reach out to others if you feel you have someone you can reach out to. And like I said before, you'll find out who your real friends are when you find out who will actually stick by you through the worst of times. And my final note is to remember, the first thing anybody's going to tell you about any sort of cure, any sort of remedy, any sort of suggestion to help yourself, these 4 words: all answers lie within. They are within you. You have the power to correct your problem if you try. It may seem difficult, it may seem impossible, but it is possible. You can do it, and I care about every single person in this world. And I want everybody to be better off and feel as if they are worth something and contribute something to society, contribute something to their own lives, make their own lives positive and personal and purposeful again. And I would think that would be the most wonderful thing that could ever happen. So I would wish everybody has that kind of experience. And if you're feeling down, reach out. Reach out to somebody. Reach out to me. I couldn't care less. I would give you my time, give you my effort, trying to make you feel as if you are worth something, a valuable human being, because you are. And I hope that everybody listens to this and understands what I'm trying to say, takes something from this, goes out and tries to do something about the problem they're having, with supportive friends or without. But understand that the situation can be manageable. It can be helped. If you believe in yourself, don't give up. And remember that all answers lie within. Thank you all for listening. Like, comment, or subscribe. I would hope to hear from somebody who actually got something positive out of this video.